Morning. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Um, we're going to talk about society in the 1950s a little bit more, different social groups, what people are doing, the idea of conformity versus non-conformity. Um, so to review, well, we'll get into like politics tomorrow. So to review socially what's going on. 1950s, right? The war's over. We're war heroes. The depression is over. Our economy is booming. Housing industry is booming. Everybody's got a job. Everybody's got family. The baby boom is going on. Like things are pretty chill. Things are pretty normal at this point. And we talked about yesterday this idea of social conformity, right? Society has created this like identity that's going to apply to everybody, right? Um, if you're a man, you're going to get married, you're going to have a 9 to 5 job, you're going to come home at the same time every day. Your wife's going to have like a whole turkey dinner in the oven. Little Johnny and little Susie are, playing down at the creek, and then mom's going to go outside and tell them to come in, and they'll come running, and everybody's happy and sunshine and rainbows and all the time, and everything's great. And if you don't fit into that like specific identity, you're doing it wrong, right? That's your one job in society, is to fit into this like idealistic expectation of what the 1950s is. That's all you got to do. You got to buy a house, got to buy a car, got to find a wife, you got to start popping out babies. That's your job. Okay. And a lot of the like older generation is down for that. They're like, all right, well, we came back from the war. Um, Great, right? The GI Bill is a thing, so I can go to college, I can buy a house, I'm going to marry my high school sweetheart, and everything's going to be great. So a lot of people who are like late 30s, early 40s, social conformity is fine. And to the kids, like young kids, they're like, well, I don't know, I guess this is what I'm supposed to do. Everybody else is doing it. So, all right, we'll just roll with it. And then there's a group of people that don't like that. They're not so much a fan of social conformity. So it's called the Beatnik Movement, or Beatniks are they're this group of people, typically like mid 20s to mid 30s ish. Um, that it's just this group of people that are like, but I don't want to socially conform. If society is telling me to do it, it's probably a bad idea. So no, not going to do it. So the beatnik movement is this idea that like if society is saying X, you should do like G, right? You should do something totally different, like not always the complete opposite, but just like something different, right? It's not something that this group of people would normally do, but now because society is telling them to conform, now they're like, well, because you told me to do it, I don't want to do it, right? It's something being a beatnik is not something that they would have done otherwise, except that society is so like pushing this idea of conformity that they're starting to like get upset about it, right? Get a little offended. So they're like, fine, if you're telling me to do it, I'm gonna not. I'm gonna do the opposite. I'm gonna do something different just because I can. So it's this idea of non-conformity. So if society is telling you to buy a house and settle down, beatniks will move from town to town every couple of weeks, right? And not have like one central home. If society is telling you to have a 9 to 5 stable job that you have forever, beatniks will be like, nah, I'll go wash dishes for a couple weeks at this restaurant, and then we'll go to another city, and like I'll just sit on the street and play my guitar and hope that people give me cash. And then a couple weeks later, I'll move again and like do my snap poetry, right? Um, it's the opposite, right? If society is saying that you're going to get married and have kids, they're like, no, like maybe we'll sleep around a little bit and we'll date, but like I'm not going to settle down. I don't want to do that yet. Like this is my time to explore life and explore what there is that there is to see. There's a book called On the Road Again. On the Road Again. I think it's On the Road Again, by Jack Kerouac, which is just a fun name to say, Jack Kerouac. Anyways, where in that book he says that beatniks have nowhere to go but everywhere. because they don't have to go to work. They don't have to go home. They don't have home. Their only job is to just like go, right? To explore, to see what's out there, to see what there is to see. Um, they're kind of, I like to think of them as like the original hipster. So a hipster now is like the normal thing to do, right? Everybody's got their hydro flask. Everybody's got their scrunchies, right? Birkenstocks are a thing again. Like being a hipster is normal. When I was in high school 10 years ago, if you were a hipster and you wore Birkenstocks, like we assumed you didn't shower, like you never brushed your teeth, you didn't have a job, you didn't have an education, you had nothing going for you in life. And like being a hipster was not good. It was the bad thing. Now being hipster is like, who doesn't wear Birkenstocks, right? They're super comfortable, like best $95 I've ever spent. But 10 years ago, like, not about that life. Same with the beatniks in the 50s. If you're a beatnik, if you're not settled down with a couple of kids and a car and like a down payment on a house, you're doing it wrong. And like nobody wants to talk to you. You're the social outcast. People like hardcore judge you. And it's just not good. This beatnik movement, like as we then transition into the 60s, right, it becomes the hippie movement. And again, early 60s, hippies are like, ugh, free love. Like house payments aren't free. Like you need to get it together. You need to have a college education and you need to buy a home and, have a job. End of the 60s and early 70s, like hippie culture is the thing. Like life revolves around the hippie culture. So there's this like cycle of society is telling us to do something and a lot of people give in and then there's always a small group of people that are like, but why are we giving in to what society is telling us to do? Like social conformity is dumb, right? There's no independence in that. Why are we doing that? We're all individuals, so why are we all fitting into this same like cookie cutter expectation of who we are? So it starts as the beatnik movement in the 50s and then like slowly, right, people don't like it. And then at the end of the 50s, it's like, oh, maybe social conformity is not that good. And then it switches to the hippie movement, which like now drugs and like free love and all that stuff is being introduced. So then people again are like, that's new and different. I don't know. And then we give it enough time and now it's the cool thing. If you're not doing drugs and like wearing tie dye and peace and love, like, who are you, you nerd? Um, and that cycle, like, every decade, right? Something new starts, people freak out. They're like, nope, social conformity. We don't like doing new things. And then give it like 5 or 6 years. And now it's normal again, right? So it'll be interesting to see like 10 years from now. Like, what do we have today in society that we're like, that's dumb. But in 10 years, we're all going to be doing it. Like, I wonder. These are the things I think about. So yeah, the beatnik movement, right? This idea of conformity versus non-conformity, giving in versus pushing back. Like what is my role in society? How am I going to function? How are my choices then perceived by everybody else? And just a general like pushback, right? We've won the war. These guys lived through the depression. They lived through the war. They're like, well, I don't want to do what society tells me to anymore. I did that when I was a kid because my parents told me to. I'm an adult now, right? I can make my own choices. I can do whatever I want. While the older generations are like, yeah, we survived the war, so we need to go back to like normalcy. And they're like, yeah, normalcy put us in a great freaking depression. Maybe not, right? Maybe we should be doing something different. So this is where we start to see like a split between older generations and younger generations, which we saw in the 20s too, right? Women are showing their ankles, and older generations are like, oh my gosh, honey, put some clothes on. You can't do that. You went on a date, you're going to hell, right? So this idea of like older generations wanting to stick with tradition while the middle generation is like, no, I don't want to stick with tradition. I want to do something new. And the younger generation's like, wow, I do what I'm told because I'm a good little kid, right? that's the Beatnik movement in a nutshell. They're the ones who always wear like all black and they have berets with their like turtleneck sweaters and they're all smoking. That's the Beatniks. Probably seen them in the movie. Anyways, that's the Beatniks. Tomorrow we'll go into more like political, social, or political changes, communism, fear of communism. So we'll talk about that tomorrow.